Welcome to episode 64 of the Rollo and Slappy Show. Today is November 6, 2017. I am Rollo McFlugel, and the show notes page for this episode is mcflugel.com/64. We recorded this episode a few days ago since it's an interview, so I'm going to pass it over to Slappy Jones, and we're going to do a little time warp to last week.
Well, thank you, Rollo, and thank you, everyone, for listening today. We have with us again, back for a second time, Vivek Raj, our Bitcoin expert, to talk about some of the recent forks and what's coming up in, I guess, about a week's time. So let's get right into it. First, I'm going to pass it over to Rollo, or back over to Rollo. Rollo, on your advice, bought a Bitcoin wallet. And Rollo, why don't you talk about that a little bit?
Okay. I bought the Trezor wallet after our last conversation with Vivek on the podcast. And it's, it costs a little bit of money. I think it was, I forget how much I spent.
120.
Yeah, it might have been. Amazon runs some deals sometimes. I think you can get it under $100. But it's a little bit intimidating at first. At first, as in before you start trying to use it. But without going into a lot of the gory details, because I don't think it's really necessary, it's actually very simple to use. And a couple of the things that I like the most about it is, one, the ease of use, that they explain everything in really good detail, that it seems like something that you're going to be like, I don't know how I'm going to use this. It's kind of, I understand kind of the online wallets and the wallets you can download. What's this hardware wallet thing? But setup is, a lot of times, especially with technology, where you're trying to install something or use something and you use their instructions and it doesn't make much sense, or it doesn't seem like the people that made the product wrote the instruction manual, but they did an excellent job with getting you set up and everything. And that goes too with the Bitcoin Cash fork. I got they made a second wallet for me with the Bitcoin Cash and how to access those coins. I know going into it, I thought it was going to be weird and frustrating and convoluted, but if you just followed what they said to do, it was super easy. And then speaking of the forks and everything, the other thing I like about them is they act kind of as a watchdog. So they have incentive to make sure that the coins people have are safe. So with the recent fork to Bitcoin Gold, they have not allowed, as far as I know yet, any access to the Bitcoin Gold coins, because although Bitcoin Gold said that they had replay protection, when Trezor looked at the code, it was not there. So I much prefer to keep my Bitcoin safe as opposed to get access to any coin that may or may not have any value. So,
no, I wasn't aware that they were the ones that spotted that.
I don't know if they were the first ones to spot it, but they sent an email out saying, because everyone was concerned about the fork, what's going to happen, and they said, yeah, it's because people were they said, we support it. The wallet supports Bitcoin Gold, but we will not be supporting Bitcoin Gold. Yeah, and people were like, you're saying two different things, and it's like, no, it's the hardware can do it. They physically can do it, but they're not going to, because it's too dangerous and because there's shady stuff going on.
Let me explain.
Quick question.
Oh, go ahead. Sure.
Yeah, no, maybe you're going to explain. What is this replay protection?
That's exactly what I was going to actually talk about for a second. Because so Rollo was mentioning something called replay protection, which I guess wasn't in Bitcoin Gold. I wasn't aware of that. It won't be in the next Bitcoin fork coming up, called SegWit 2X, otherwise known as the New York Agreement. So let me explain just for a minute what replay protection is, because it's kind of an important concept. When you use a Bitcoin wallet of any sort, a hardware wallet, a cell phone wallet, a wallet that's on your computer, it uses your private keys. That's what a wallet is. It stores your private keys and then uses software to generate a transaction. And the way it broadcasts a transaction to the Bitcoin network as a whole is called a digital signature. And digital signatures are just cryptography going back decades. It's existed before Bitcoin. It's pretty commonplace. Now, without replay protection, what happens after the fork is, so there's two separate coins, two separate chains. say I want to dump my Bitcoin Gold by sending it to a exchange. It could be Poloniex, it could be Shapeshift, something like that. Changelly, which is another one. If I want to send to an exchange, I'd have to use my wallet to send a Bitcoin transaction, which would broadcast to the network with that digital signature. But the people that made Bitcoin Gold and are making SegWit2x, they're not including any kind of protection that would prevent that digital signature from being rebroadcast on the original Bitcoin network, the other chain. If that digital signature gets broadcast, that means you would lose your money on the original chain as well, because it would be the exact same digital signature. They didn't make a change. Now, in this respect, the Bitcoin Cash fork that already happened on August 1st was done more quote unquote honorably and was less aggressive, was not less contentious, because they actually bothered to change the mechanism through which that digital signature was generated, meaning it wouldn't be the same signature on both chains.
So I have a question. Let me jump in. So if without the replay protection and the digital signature gets sent through both blockchains, is it going to the address of the forked version of Bitcoin?
Yes. So it would go to the exact same address on the original chain.
Okay, but that address wouldn't necessarily exist on the other one, right? So it just goes to nowhere, or it goes to some.
Basically, they're virtually identical chains, so I think that address would exist on both. That's why actually even on Bitcoin Cash, the address system was not changed the way it was generated. So you can actually accidentally send Bitcoin to a Bitcoin Cash address. So you have to make sure you're using the right chain. This all goes into why these forks are kind of ridiculous on some level. I mean, over time, the distinctions in the networks will begin to partition better, but replay protection makes it that much harder to partition the networks. And in that sense, it can be considered more contentious and aggressive and of attack.
Okay.
But, Bitcoin attacks are good. I mean, we've always said that. The more the network is attacked and the sooner it is, the more we can develop immune systems and make the system stronger. It's tested and it evolves.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mm-hmm. So that was the replay protection. So that's why I would recommend against dumping these right away until we have some system in place.
So just so I understand that, so you're saying, say I, have one Bitcoin, and then this fork happens. Now I have one Bitcoin and one of the SegWit2.
Yeah.
Now I want to send Bitcoin to Rollo, so I send him half a Bitcoin. It will send half of my SegWit2 coin to him as well?
It won't necessarily do that. What it would do is because that digital signature, when your phone broadcasts it on the original Bitcoin network, anybody on Earth can take that digital signature and rebroadcast it on the other network also, and vice versa.
Gotcha.
So what I would say is it's safe to send Bitcoin. It's not safe because if you don't care about SegWit2x coin at all, you don't give a damn about losing it. It's safe to send Bitcoin transactions because then somebody could just replay that digital signature on the SegWit2x chain. But you sure as hell want to protect your Bitcoin, so that's why you don't want to send SegWit2x transactions, because then that could be rebroadcast on the original Bitcoin chain.
They can get your Bitcoin, right?
Yeah. But it's safe to receive things, though. Receiving is safe either way. It's sending and generating transactions that's unsafe on the new chain, the forked chain.
Right.
Yeah.
So I may be jumping way ahead of what we're, but since we're on the topic, so so I know a lot of services, most as far as I know, or I don't know most, but a lot, we're not supporting the Bitcoin Gold fork because of the lack of replay protection. What's the difference now with the SegWit2 that it seems like a lot are supporting it, or at least allowing access to those coins while still, because I saw something Coinbase came out today with an email saying, hey, we're going to support SegWit2, but be really careful, and we wouldn't use it because of the lack of replay protection.
I don't know why I assume that they didn't support Bitcoin Gold because it's not a big project. It's some shady dude doing something somewhere, and most of us don't really care about it. It's not going to be worth very much. It's probably just good to just ignore it altogether. means remember, sending and receiving Bitcoin itself is still safe if you if you completely ignore the other chain.
Mm-hmm.
It's only when you start to mess with the other chain that you can get in trouble on the original Bitcoin. As far as SegWit2x, they have to support it. They were the ones who created it.
Oh, were they really?
Yeah. This is all Bitcoin. So do you want me to go back to the politics of it?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Because I didn't.
Okay. We have this like 2 to 3 year civil war in Bitcoin between Bitcoin Core, which wants a upgrade to Bitcoin called SegWit, segregated witness, implemented. I'm not going to get into the benefits of Bitcoin. It basically, it changes the scripting format. It does raise the block size. In effect, there's kind of moving the signature to a different part of the block to a witness block. So that's why it's called segregated witness. It helps open up the door to Lightning Network by solving malleability, which is transaction malleability. So that's all the technical stuff. But that's what Bitcoin Core wanted. They wanted SegWit. And then the other big blockers didn't want SegWit, and they wanted to raise the block size. And that side is like Roger Ver, the original Bitcoin, quote-unquote, heir to Satoshi, Gavin Andreessen. He was a big blocker. His first project was called Bitcoin XT, which was supposed to fork from Core and raise the block size to 20 megabytes, from 1 to 20 megabytes. Mike Hearn, who was that developer who quit and said Bitcoin was dead about like a year and a half ago, early 2016. That was their crowd. So there's this war going for 2.5 years between these two sides. And then in May, there was a conference in New York City called Consensus. And it's hosted by Digital Currency Group, which the CEO is a guy named Barry Silbert. Barry Silbert's like this kind of Wall Street guy who came to Bitcoin, fund startups. And so he got a bunch of mining companies in a room, got a bunch of companies like Coinbase, Circle, pretty much all the heavy hitters. You name them, they were in there. Exchanges. And all the companies just decide, hey, we have decided that Bitcoin is going to have segregated witness on August 1st. And we're going to follow it up with a few months later with a hard fork to 2 megabytes. And this is our compromise to keep Bitcoin together. And it's utterly ridiculous for a number of reasons. And the first reason is, well, first of all, not all this, the two groups are fundamentally opposed to one another. They don't want SegWit, and we don't want a bigger block size, or at least a hard fork to a larger block size at this time. So what ended up happening was on August 1st, we just had a fork. So they forked off. We got SegWit on the original chain, so we actually achieved our goal of activating SegWit. If you're in support of Bitcoin Core, I guess you can probably tell what side I'm on based on my tone. And then they forked off and created a separate blockchain called Bitcoin Cash. I call it Bcash because really they're just trying to take the name Bitcoin. And their separate blockchain, their separate coin, their altcoin, their change was to raise the block size to 2 megabytes and not include SegWit. So the New York agreement that Barry Silbert hatched together didn't even work. It didn't keep Bitcoin together. So the point is kind of moot right now. So we now have SegWit on the original chain. Thanks, guys. I mean, I appreciate it. Really, your hand was forced by the UASF movement, which was going to upgrade to SegWit anyway. Miners be damned. And so we have SegWit. We don't need the 2 megabyte block size next month. Fees are fine, but even beyond that, if you have a fundamental understanding of what Bitcoin is, like, fees are not the problem. Fees are going to keep increasing on the main Bitcoin blockchain for the foreseeable future, and it will continue. I mean, someday it may be hundreds of dollars in a transaction. That's because the price of Bitcoin has gone up probably 100-fold. Like, if you're a millionaire, sending $100 for a Bitcoin transaction is not a big deal. Now you can say, okay, well, millionaires aren't going to be able to spend their coins on chain. And of course, that's the point. It's always going to be expensive to spend on chain because Bitcoin, it's not a niche science project anymore. It's getting bigger, and that the competition for block space is going to be continual. And if you just keep raising the block size, all it's going to do is encourage more centralization. You're just regressing back to the status quo of like PayPal and Visa and MasterCard.
So how does the increasing the block size lead to that centralization?
Well,
I'm personally not very clear. That's one of the things I was kind of I'm weak on, is about what the mechanisms of the block.
Yeah. So you guys have really good grasp of economics. I mean, I listen to your pretty much every episode of your podcast. I might miss one here or there, but you guys, I mean, you talk about things like immigration in terms of economics terms. I mean, you have a pretty good solid grasp of economics. So I guess you try to think of like all the incentives of the actors in the system. If you raise the block size, that means more, with the goal of reducing transaction fees, that means the marginal propensity to send a transaction would be greater, right? More people send transactions because it's facing a lower cost. Mm-hmm. So the miners, the people who are rewarded by this are the miners who, I guess, whatever fee you do, they mine the block by including transactions in it, and they broadcast that block to the entire network as a whole. And if their block is accepted, they are rewarded for it. But the network as a whole isn't rewarded. Like all the other miners and all the other nodes that accept the block as the next block in the blockchain, they're not rewarded for that system, for that transaction. So a lot of it kind of operates on a volunteer basis. Nodes are not compensated. Now you could say people who run nodes are typically people who are sending and receiving a lot of transactions. That's true, but it should still be an accessible. It should not be too expensive to run a node, because that's what maintains the integrity of the system. Right. So I mean, right now running a node can. Go ahead.
I was going to say, so are you saying there would be less nodes with a bigger
Yeah,
block?
I think so. I mean, ceteris paribus, if it's more expensive to run a node because you're now
because you have two. Yeah. I see what you're saying.
You're taking a lot more bandwidth. There's going to be fewer nodes.
There's going to be fewer nodes out there, which is going to centralize the decision making more. So.
Oh, okay, yes. Okay, I got
it. Exactly, it's going to centralize the decision making. And right now, running a node, if it's well connected, can use up several hundred gigabytes a month. And what I want, I have this dream of Bitcoin in the future, and so censorship resistant that it can never be taken down. My dream is not just for a group of a few thousand node runners to maintain the integrity of the network. Maybe it's probably tens of thousands. There's lots of varying estimates of the number of nodes out there. I want a node in every computer. I want a Bitcoin node in every router, in every an actual full node. Now, I know you're thinking, what's that wallet on my phone? That wallet on your phone is not a node. It is not actually sending and receiving. And storing the whole blockchain on the phone. What it's doing is communicating with the server somewhere else, somebody else's node, or in the case of Trezor, you're not running a full node with the Trezor. All that Trezor is doing is holding the private keys. You're depending upon Trezor company to run a full node on your behalf. Mm-hmm. Now, there is a hack around. You could download a full node on your computer by going to bitcoin.org and downloading Bitcoin Core on your computer, but you'd have to. It's kind of I don't know if you can use a Trezor with Bitcoin Core on your computer. There'd be some technical difficulties there. But I want someday there be a Bitcoin node in everything. That would be a truly censorship resistant system. Also, running your own node is it's more private, because if you have the actual full blockchain, the whole file, like it's like maybe 120 gigabytes right now. I'm not sure. You can look it up. The Bitcoin blockchain, the storage of all the transactions. If you can just query when you need to know, like, hey, what is the number of Bitcoins at this address or that address, you can just query locally on your computer at the copy of the blockchain there. But otherwise, if you had to use your wallet on your phone or your computer that connects to a node somewhere else, like Trezor's or blockchain.info or not Coinbase because they're full custody, but Bread Wallet, whomever, you're depending on them to give you that data, and if they could spy on you, so it's more private this way also. Mm-hmm. It basically just makes the system more robust in every way. So ideally, you store your keys yourself and you run your own full node. Now I know it's gonna sound like I'm a hypocrite. I don't actually run a full node right now. And the reason why is because I used to spend Bitcoin a little bit. I don't really do it much anymore. So I don't actually need to run a node because I'm not actually transacting that much. Now, someday when I do transact and send more, I'm just going to spool up a node then. But I want the ability, you have to have at least the ability to run a node. If you can't run a node because you live in the middle of sub-Saharan Africa, you don't have a high-speed internet, you're going to have to trust third parties in Bitcoin. Somebody else is going to serve you the information of what's on the block regarding what's on the blockchain.
Right.
So nodes are important.
Yeah, I saw the other day. I think it's Samsung or someone is developing software to, I guess, run a node on cell phone, like, the full things. It's like, oh, what to do with the old cell phones, and it's like, well, instead of just throwing it away or trading it in and getting like $5 for your cell phone, your smartphone, you can just let it sit at home and operate and go on the Bitcoin network, which seems brilliant.
Yeah. I mean, that's exciting if they can run full node softwares on Raspberry Pis, old cell phones, old computers, routers. It really just makes it that much harder for the government to take it down. And that's the name of the game: censorship resistance.
Yeah, go ahead.
I was gonna say that. So raising the block size also has other consequences outside of nodes. But what I like about the Bitcoin core team is that they're very cognizant of the cost of running a node. Like they're trying to, they seem to take decentralization more seriously, and I like that. I mean, they're very conservative about increasing the burden on running nodes. But increasing the block size does have other centralizing effects, even apart from running the node. For example, if you have a larger block, say a 2 megabyte or say a 20 megabyte block of transactions that a miner mines, when they versus say a 1 megabyte capped block of transactions, that 20 megabyte block is going to propagate across the network slower. So the question is, how does that affect the incentives of the system? What would you think, as people who know economics, what would the business consequence of that if you have larger blocks that propagate slower versus smaller blocks that propagate faster?
Well, it's going to slow down, I guess, business on the blockchain, right? So it pulls.
Well, you could say there's more transactions in a given block, and there's more blocks per time. So you could argue, actually, no, there's going to be more business on the blockchain. But there is something would happen. It would probably cause more mining centralization, because what happened is more miners will begin merging together. So we used to, in the old days of Bitcoin, the very beginning, every node was a miner. And then eventually you started mining pools, and people would run ASICs in their basement or something. And now it's become more centralized, such that you have major companies like Bitfury and Antpool that are professional miners. And I think we need to kind of fight that direction, like fight that drift in the centralization direction. And that's just with the 1 megabyte block size. I mean, you start increasing it to 2, 4, 8, 20, and it's only for, remember, it's all costs and benefits in this system. The benefits are only linear. Like if you have a 2 megabyte block size, all you can do is just have twice as many transactions. Now, Bitcoin has about somewhere between 3 and 7 transactions per second, depending on the size of each digital signature and the actual transaction itself, how many kilobytes it makes up. But like Visa and MasterCard, they do like 50,000 a second. Like, do you really think going from like 7 to 14 is going to help us like take on Visa? Or going from 14 to like 28 transactions per second, meanwhile they're doing 50,000, and it's like,
right?
Yeah, that is kind of funny.
Who thinks this?
Well, got a question for you.
It's so silly, You have to have a more efficient second layer network if you want Bitcoin transactions to remain cheap. You have to have a more efficient second layer network that doesn't take the entire system and come to consensus. Consensus is an expensive process.
Yeah, sure.
So this is what I've been trying to say to people, is that Bitcoin is a different. There's a trade-off between efficiency and cost, more efficiency, lower cost, and things like freedom and censorship resistance. And this is a different point on that trade-off curve: Bitcoin versus the traditional money system, which was probably more efficient on a technical level, not on a regulatory level. Bitcoin routes around all those regulations, but on a technical level, it's way more efficient to have one server run by PayPal than thousands of nodes and miners that are burning God knows how much energy trying to mine blocks.
Right.
Yeah.
I was going to say, could Bitcoin, or should they have foreseen that? it would get more centralized as it got more expensive to mine?
So I think I think the block size cap. Should we foreseen that? That's a hard question. I mean, I guess we probably knew we could probably long term, you look and say, okay, wow, that was clearly the trend that occurred over the course of now 8.5 years since Bitcoin was created. But I don't think mining centralization is actually 100% a bad thing, because it's a trade-off, and maybe the system, as long as miners are not acting up against the users or the holders of Bitcoin, then that's fine. I mean, remember, I think we were talking about this the last episode. Miners can't take your money. They can just really, their only power is to refuse to mine they can mine blocks, but they can refuse to include transactions in the block, which is essentially like blocking transactions from happening. And
is that kind of like the fail safe of it? Did they kind of destroy the value, and so it destroys themselves too?
I don't think so much the value is so much the if they're not going to let transactions go in. First of all, they have to have enough mining power. Say the government started a mining facility tomorrow, and they had enough, and they bought millions of miners, and they started mining all the blocks. All they could do is prevent transactions from being embedded in the blockchain. So they'd basically be a blockchain that would just mine block after block after block with no transactions in it. But the fail-safe for the network would be to do what's called a proof of work change, which would make all of those ASIC computers, the specialized computers that mine Bitcoin, it'd make all of them useless in one fell swoop. The whole network would have to restart again. But because there's so much value in the Bitcoin blockchain, you'd pretty much, I bet, the mining hash rate fall to zero, and then pretty immediately shoot back up again as people that want that Bitcoin block reward enter the mining game. That'd be my analysis of that situation. If the government were to do a 51% attack, I don't think a 51% attack is really that feasible in the long run, though.
Would it even be worth it to them?
Because
I guess
they can't take anything. They'd have to buy a bunch of miners. In the end, the network would just fork away from their creating a new proof of work. So they wouldn't. And I mean, if it might be, I don't think it'd be worth it. I think that there are other avenues of attack that have a much lower cost and potentially have a higher benefit, and that's like social attacks, like convincing people to, go on a different fork chain, like this New York agreement. If one of my other problems with it is that not just the technical reasons, but if a bunch of CEOs can sit in a hotel conference room and hammer out a change to Bitcoin, what does that say about, and that actual change was not agreed to by the community beforehand, was completely secretive, then what does it say about Bitcoin censorship resistance, that we can just change Bitcoin like that at the flick of a wrist? That means that the government could go to those same CEOs and coerce them to add new features that are bad for Bitcoin users and holders, like blacklists, which would eventually blacklist particular addresses. They could try to tell them, oh, we don't want you to mine blocks from this, with including transactions from this address, because because that guy's a terrorist or something. I don't know. That's what they'll say.
Right.
So I mean, that's another reason. It's kind of crazy that you can just, Bitcoin is the antithesis of a group of CEOs sitting and agreeing on something.
Right, and that's how I always kind of interpreted how any sort of change in the network would happen. Like, because when I was first getting into it, and people were saying like, oh, there could be issues where they need to, make a change, because that was the thing. What happens when something needs to happen? Like there's a discovery that there's something wrong with the software, something needs to change. It goes, well, all the nodes, if there was an agreement among the nodes, and that would kind of changed all what's best for, you would assume that it would be what's best for Bitcoin, and that's where you have all of the individuals kind of deciding that, and instead of like you're talking about where it's just a couple people decide, oh, we're going to do it this way, and when you have a couple people deciding who have a lot of power and a lot of control over everything, that's where the corruption tends to happen.
Yeah, I mean, if these guys can just change Bitcoin at the drop of a hat, then Bitcoin isn't truly decentralized. If the New York agreement wins and like basically becomes the Bitcoin, then I don't really know why we're here anymore. Like we failed. Like, it's just that. But I mean, this is why it requires eternal vigilance. Is the price of freedom.
Mm-hmm.
You got to secure your private keys yourself. And I mean, I think a hardware wallet is very good. Trezor is a great option because the guy who runs Trezor, he goes by the name under the moniker of Slush. I think they're based like Czech Republic, but he's a long-time Bitcoiner. He actually created the very first Bitcoin mining pool called Slush Pool, and he runs Satoshi Labs, the parent company of Trezor, and he has always been very pro cypherpunk, crypto anarchist mentality. So that's why I like him. The Ledger is a perfectly good option. I just get the feeling from the Ledger's a little more businessy. They're a little more, I don't know, kind of this type of like these CEOs that run that sign the New York. I don't think they actually signed the New York agreement, but I don't think they're as vocally in opposition to it. But ultimately, both the Trezor and Ledger will give you your option of the network. But like I was saying, because of no replay protection, it's a little dangerous to send on the SegWit2x chain. Now, the Bcash chain that was created on August 1st, feel free to dump those if you have those coins on your Trezor.
I already did. I did that a while ago.
Did you dump all of yours?
Yes.
Okay, I actually haven't dumped all of mine. I've dumped not even most of mine. I've dumped probably 30%, but then I didn't get access to them, like I guess until the price had already fallen to, like, I guess below 0.12. So I wasn't going to get as much. So I dumped all mine then, all the ones I did dump. If it goes up above like I just want a good return. So if it goes above 0.15, I'm holding for then, and then I'm going to dump some more.
By the time I got it and realized that I should do something, it was kind of it looked like it was steadily declining. Yeah. I got pretty good value for it.
The lucky people got it at 0.2.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of where I think I was actually around that. Because I don't remember what it was, but I remember how much it added up to in Bitcoin, and it ended up being all right.
Yeah, all of this kind of speaks to why running a node is important, because even if these New York Agreement CEOs and Barry Silbert and the Digital Currency Group, even if pretty much every company in Bitcoin aligns against the best interests of a Bitcoin user or a hodler, as I am primarily, you can always, if you secure your private keys yourself, and ultimately if you run a node yourself in order to transact, you are perfectly secure. You are fully protected from their shenanigans. So it's important, as more people come into Bitcoin, that they don't just buy Bitcoin and store it at a Coinbase or store it at some third party, and that they actually learn to embrace their sovereignty.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, and that's and kind of what you're saying this whole time of what is the point of Bitcoin, and it is a way to get out of the central banking system, out of the government regulation, and to say that we can regulate ourselves and all that great stuff. So if you are if it's going to centralization and becoming that just a couple people are kind of ruling over your money, then what's the point?
I have some coworkers who I guess like maybe a month and a half ago I discovered they were into Bitcoin, and I was talking to them and I was talking about the upcoming fork, and they're like, man, what are we gonna do? How are we gonna get access to our coins? And I learned they said that they'd never taken their coins off of Coinbase.
Yeah,
and they've been doing this for like a while, like at least like 4 or 5 months. And I was like, you guys gotta get your money out of there. Like I came of age when like Mt. Gox collapsed, so like I've seen what can happen when shit goes down.
Oh yeah, it's I mean, hopefully because I've used Coinbase to buy my Bitcoin, and I for a little bit, because I didn't understand it in the beginning either. I was just understand there's no consider your Bitcoins tracked. That is the best. Right. That is the best practice. And if you're using a Trezor and you have Bitcoins that you bought from Coinbase and then say Bitcoins you got in an anonymous manner, then keep them in separate accounts. Okay.
So you can create extra accounts, really an unlimited number.
Right.
So keep them into 2 distinguished accounts. That way, the funds won't jumble between them.
Mm-hmm.
So that's always good practice.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So
can you make any recommendations for a software wallet, or would you not recommend software wallets?
Oof. So I like hardware wallets because they're cold, what we call cold wallets. Mm-hmm. You should always, so say you have 10 Bitcoin. Well, I mean, are you talking about somebody who is actively transacting in Bitcoin, or somebody who's just a hodler and is just collecting them and storing them away?
Yeah, basically, yeah, a hodler. Someone who doesn't even understand the concept of Bitcoin. They heard about it. They see the price going up. They want to buy some. Okay,
there's only two legitimate options, and one's a lot better than the other. One's a paper wallet, and the other is a hardware wallet. A paper wallet is, you can go to this website called bitaddress.org. I think there's another one called bitcoinpaperwallet.com. These are old websites that have been running for ages. And you can generate a paper wallet. You can download software to your computer if you don't want to actually use their webware because you're afraid there may be vulnerabilities there. You can download software to the computer, and then you can generate a paper wallet on your computer and print it out. I used to use this. I don't use it anymore. And the reason why is I have no computer science background. I'm not a coder. I can't analyze the code. So I've only trusted the fact that other people have trusted that code on the website. And frankly, the sites they're kind of like those old websites from like the 90s that they're not very like spiffy. There's no company behind them. I don't know who runs them. Right. So they could put malicious code in there that steals your money that you deposited there. Now, he hasn't done it thus far. I'm not accusing the guy of doing it, but it's possible. Whereas Trezor is like kind of an established company. It's well reviewed. The whole code of theirs is all open source as well. But there's a little more of a trusted entity behind there. And you always have to be a little paranoid in Bitcoin, assuming if somebody's trying to take your Bitcoins. So the Bitcoin, you can print out Bitcoin paper wallet. But the problem is if you print those wallets out, a printer sometimes stores memory of everything that's printed. And if somebody else, I don't know, you give the printer away to a relative and they analyze the memory of the printer, right, they could theoretically print out those same paper wallets with the private key and take your Bitcoins that were stored there. Then also, if somebody breaks into your house and takes the Bitcoin paper wallet, they can take all the money on it. Now, you could theoretically add a password to access the money in the paper wallet. I've never done that. I haven't done that. I just printed them out for the longest time. And if somebody broke into my apartment and they searched through my stuff and they knew what a Bitcoin paper wallet looked like and they stole it, my paper wallets, they could have had all my money. Yeah, they're gone. Right. But I don't use that anymore because the hardware wallet is better. Even if you lose the hardware wallet, they can't necessarily get the money off of it. Right. So I don't like paper wallets. Hardware wallets are better. And I think we talked extensively about that last time, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Hardware wallets. So I won't go into that again. But here's what I will do. I will highly recommend an article in Wired magazine I read, I don't know, maybe 2 days ago. It was called How I Almost Lost $30,000 in Bitcoin. I think let me look this up because I don't have it right in front of me. But this article was, it's called I Forgot My PIN, an epic tale of losing $30,000 in Bitcoin. Mm. And it was basically a guy who got a Trezor and he set it up. He wrote down his 24-word passphrase, and then he wrote down his PIN number. It was a bunch of 4s and 5s. And then he wrote down a sheet of paper, and then he tucked it away somewhere, and then he went on vacation, and his house was being cleaned by a cleaner when he was gone. And the cleaner took that sheet of paper and threw it away. Oh, no. She didn't take the money. She didn't know what those 24 words were.
Yeah, I thought it was trash, right?
Oh my God. So she threw it away, and this guy comes back on vacation, and the whole article, it's so fascinating. It's a pretty long one, so it's going to take you like 20 minutes to read it. But it's him trying PIN combinations.
Oh man, I saw that article. I didn't read it, but we'll put it on the show notes page for people to read. Yeah, I mean that's fun. It's funny because it reminds me of this one time where I was going through my stuff in my house and I found this little notebook, and it just had a bunch of random random words in it. And I'm just like trying. I was like, did I have like a dream or something that I was sleepwalking and wrote these words down? This doesn't make any sense. And I was talking to friends and coworkers, be like,
was it in your handwriting?
Yeah. Oh, I knew I wrote it. And
you wrote it, okay.
I'm like, what in the world? And I finally, like a year later, I was like, oh, those are my. I'm an idiot. That's for my private keys for a Bitcoin wallet I have.
Oh, okay. Write that shit down. Do not put it in your email. Do not put it in your Google Drive, your Dropbox, whatever. Do not put your PIN or your 24-word passphrase anywhere online. Write down 3 times. Put one copy at your house. Put one copy at your sister or brother's house somewhere. Like tell assuming you trust them.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe write it in like a page of a book. I don't know, but have like several copies of that, because the passphrase is, even if you lose your Trezor, you can reinstall the entire thing. Even if Trezor goes out of business, there's software you can just download and then enter the 24-word passphrase and then reload all your money. It'll back up. That 24-word seed can generate all of your wallets, and then the PIN number is only good on your particular Trezor.
Right.
But the PIN number is So every time if somebody steals your Trezor and they don't have the PIN number, if they enter it wrong, every time they enter it wrong, the amount of time required to wait before you can try again doubles.
Oh.
So that's part of this guy's article in Wired magazine. I forgot my PIN. He talks about how like he was just trying all these combinations, and so it went from like you wait 1 second, then you wait 2 seconds. Then you wait 4 seconds. Each time you get it wrong. 8.
That's really quick that it gets really long.
Yeah. So that's what happens. Like after a while, he was like had to go wait like 9 hours between attempts.
Oh no! I got to read this article. This sounds like something I would do too. Get myself into
by the end, you find out whether or not he got his money back.
Oh.
What do you guys think? Just right now, just tell me what your hunch is. Does he get his money back?
I'm saying no.
Okay.
I'm going to say yeah, because I think he would have jumped off a bridge if he didn't. The
name of the article is "I Forgot My PIN: An Epic Tale Losing $30,000 in Bitcoin." So, if you want to go read it, it's funny.
Yeah, we'll check that out.
They could make like a short movie out of it or something.
That would be good. little Bitcoin thriller, action adventure thriller.
Yeah, I know.
The guy just sitting there.
Yeah.
All the things he's got to do between waiting to put in his PIN.
Yeah.
He probably accomplished a lot because he's you can't just stare at the clock waiting for it for your next time. So.
Well, I'll be frank. My PIN I don't have written anywhere. I just memorized my PIN. But I do have my 24-word passphrase written in multiple places.
Yeah, that's
where it cannot be taken.
I need to not have the passphrases. I have it written down a couple times, but basically in the same spot, which is stupid. In case let's say there's a random fire in my house, and that's where it is.
Yeah, you can't put it all in one house. You have to have it someplace else.
Right.
I also would not trust bank safety deposit boxes because those can be confiscated at, the government. You bought Bitcoin on Coinbase, the government can say, okay, so Rollo bought Bitcoin on Coinbase, and he has a safety deposit box at Bank of America. We're not going to tell him. We're just going to go there, get a warrant, take it out, open it up. Money's all yours, all ours to the government now. Remember Dread Pirate Roberts, the Silk Road guy?
Yep.
Ross Ulbricht sitting in jail right now. He didn't secure his Bitcoin properly, and that's why he's sitting in jail. Think of if he had $100 million in Bitcoin. He had like 100, 200, several $100 million in Bitcoin at that time.
Yeah, back then.
Suppose he had backed it up properly and had it written down someplace that the government couldn't find, he probably could use that as a negotiation for his freedom.
Yeah, it's true. Because that's a great point because they already had it, so they don't care anymore. They got their money.
Yeah, you get your lawyer say, I pay you $10 million and I give $90 million to the government and I get to walk free. That's my reward. And I get full immunity for everything.
Yeah.
It teaches you something on Bitcoin. It's a secure store value from political shenanigans, from inflation. government. It's a hedge against government. And that's what we need to treat it as. We shouldn't be treating it as a cheaper consumer retail option that, it's not going to take off that way, because we've already established the system is less technically efficient than centralized servers. This is about freedom,
right?
For lack of a better word. And it kind of explains why these New York Agreement CEOs signed that. It's because these people, they started Bitcoin companies, a lot of them venture funded, and their companies have not done as well as Bitcoin itself. The most successful Bitcoin company you can point to is Coinbase. They say it might be a unicorn now. I'm a little skeptical of that, but it might be worth more than $1 billion. And that's the most, by far, successful Bitcoin company. And I think I saw a tweet a while back. Coinbase, even valued like above $1 billion, its valuation from its very first day to now has not appreciated faster than the price of Bitcoin. So these CEOs, they built companies around the premise of it being a retail option, like BitPay. That was BitPay's MO. They were going to be the people that you spend Bitcoin with and convert it back to dollars so that the merchant can take it. Their entire company is built on a bad premise. I'm sorry, but bad companies don't get to change the protocol to make up for your poor business decisions.
And that's kind of the one push by people that's been at least annoying, as I see it. You have to be able to spend it on day-to-day stuff. We need to do that. And it's like, well, why? And there's a good video. I think it was like Business Week or something. They went around saying like, all right, well, let's see how, they say Bitcoin's great and everything. Let's see if we can spend it in all these places, even places that claim they accept it. And they go and do it, and they can't really spend it anywhere. And they say, implying, is that a bad thing? Does that mean Bitcoin's no good? And they went around with gold. And fewer people accepted the gold, and their point was, it's like, okay, no one questions the value of gold, but you can't spend it anywhere.
Yeah. Bitcoin fees aren't bad right now.
No, they're not at all.
I think they're I said a transaction, I think like 40 or 50 cents like a week or two ago. It's not so bad. I think you can probably, some people say you can even get down to like 10 cents. I don't know.
Right.
But
yeah, it's nice. Trezor, you can set your fee.
Yeah, it sort of misses the point. I don't think even when Bitcoin transactions are cheap, in the early days when blocks weren't crowded, nobody still took Bitcoin.
Right.
It was never the useful thing for it. And I can understand, you guys know who Roger Ver is? Mm-hmm. He's kind of the big blocker in chief. This is a guy who basically lives on Bitcoin, all his hundreds of millions of dollars in Bitcoin, thanks to its appreciation. He's the main proponent of Bitcoin Cash. I can kind of see things from his perspective. He lives on Bitcoin because, I guess he was in the jail in the U.S. and then after he got out of jail for some firecracker selling thing, he went to Japan. He lived basically internationally. He's flying around, so he's using Bitcoin a lot. He has a lot of Bitcoin. He uses a lot, but 99% of people are not like that.
Right.
We're fine with dollars and credit cards, or we're fine with, I guess, credit cards and cash to some extent and PayPal. They're fine with that. These things have to be built on top of Bitcoin. And what's going to happen is all these companies are going to move over to Bitcoin as time goes on if we can continue the price rise and capturing market value. That's my opinion. There's some people, a lot of people have been pointing out that Bitcoin, its innovation is it's not going to wipe out the banks, it's going to wipe out the central banks.
Right. Mm-hmm. That's what I care about.
Yeah, well, it's on money. But the system, you have to have decentralization. That is the core of the network. That's what it's all built on. So I guess we talked a lot about the politics of it.
Yeah. But so your advice, anyway, let's kind of recap what we talked about. Mm-hmm. But your advice on this next upcoming fork is not to move any of the SegWit to X once it splits, at least not initially.
I wouldn't. Yeah, because of the replay protection.
Because of that replay protection.
The lack of replay protection.
Right.
Now I'm looking at the futures markets. There's an exchange called Bitfinex, and they have a futures market that is only showing SegWit 2X at 15% currently. So it's not like you're going to lose a lot of money. Like, say theoretically, on the day of the fork, nobody is buying or selling Bitcoin or coming into and out of these markets, and they only trade amongst them. They only trade between Bitcoin and SegWit2x. SegWit2x is only going to take 15% of that total market cap based on the futures markets right now.
Right.
So I don't think it's going to be, you're going to lose a lot. So you might lose 15% of your money. But I mean, look at how Bitcoin grows. Like, it's, you'll get 15% back in like a week.
An hour.
Yeah. I know. Well, what is the price right now as we're talking?
I was just thinking, I think it was before we went on. It was 68.
Yeah,
I think it's still around 68, 68, 98 on Coinbase. Oh my God,
it's just this is like what 1674. I think we might break 7,000 tonight.
Actually, according to this this tracker I have, it did go higher than 7,000 at some point.
Oh, it did?
Wow.
All
70, right. 70, 57.
All right, let's give a round of applause.
Yeah, woo! You know what? It probably happened while we were doing this podcast episode.
Yeah, I know, because I just checked beforehand. All right.
History. We made history on this podcast tonight.
Yeah, I know. Thanks to us. I don't know. This has changed the mood the past 6 months. Like, people, when I got into Bitcoin 4.5 years ago, like, people didn't know what it was.
Right.
No, I know.
It was like I told her I was dating a girl at the time, and I told her about it, and she's like, "Oh yeah, it sounds weird." It's like every time I mention it again, she like wouldn't even like acknowledge what I was talking about.
Well, it's funny because now it is becoming everyone at least has
knows about it.
They know.
Yeah. When we first heard about it, I didn't buy it right away because I was unsure.
I spent 6 months researching it before I even bought single one.
I wish I did buy some of it. I wish I bought more than I did.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not telling you to go dump all your money, every spare dollar you have into it now. No. But I don't think we have much. Things feel different. It's you're not laughed at anymore. You see, there's new. Right. I don't really know much about the finance world, but there's some derivatives, options markets that are launching. One's called LedgerX. And then another one that recently launched, I guess, or was going to launch the next month or two, is called CME Group. They're creating derivatives and stuff based on it. And I mean, you can't really stop them. I don't know if people think this is too much like the housing bubble where you have like mortgage-backed securities. I don't know. You can't really stop them, but it's good that Wall Street money is moving in. And then what may eventually happen is just like central banks just start buying Bitcoins. And then that's when things get really interesting.
Oh yeah.
We might be a few years away from that, but
well, they're talking about people too. If people who have like offshore bank accounts, if they just move that money into Bitcoin, what that would do to the price, it would make the price go through the roof.
Did I tell you guys about that article in the New York Times last time we spoke about the divorce?
I don't remember.
Okay, I don't know if I was talking to you or someone else. There was a wealthy guy, I guess a British couple. They live in West Palm Beach. They ran some internet company, and then they got divorced. And the husband had basically set up a bunch of shell companies, like all through New Zealand and the Caribbean, and he had lawyers and this and that. And it was all to hide money from his wife in the event of a divorce, because they had like $200 or $300 million. And the whole time,
I wonder why they split up.
Yeah, I know. But the whole time I read this, I'm thinking like, if only just use Bitcoin.
Oh yeah.
Or you seen Breaking Bad? Mm-hmm. Remember how he buried the barrels of cash in the desert? It's just like in this day and age, just
put it in Bitcoin.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah. But it's not as exciting a movie though, or show.
I know. Breaking Bad would have been so damn boring last season. Just Bitcoin. I mean, that's to some extent what happened with the darknet markets. They took Bitcoin. The vendors sold their drugs in there. They take Bitcoin and they probably deposit it in a treasure somewhere. So if they get arrested, it's like, okay, fine. You caught me with my heroin, but there's nothing you can do to me. You can't take my money. No, I do think eventually that use case will be priced out on Bitcoin. Like as the price rises and if it becomes $100 million of Bitcoin,
sure.
You're not gonna. It's gonna cost like maybe $50 bucks to send a Bitcoin transaction if the price is $1 million.
Right.
I can live with that. But
Yeah, I'd be.
Yeah. I was gonna say I can handle that. I'd be all right.
but
for doing everyday small transactions, it wouldn't make much sense.
Exactly. Now we may be able to evade. We may be able to have small transactions if Lightning Network works out, but I mean, I don't want to put the cart before the horse. I'm optimistic about Lightning Network, and there's Lightning Network wallets out right now, alpha versions, but that's a promising angle to have decentralized, actual retail transactions on Bitcoin. There's drawbacks to it, of course. There may be eventual limitations, but it's a promising avenue. And eventually what will happen is we'll just have Bitcoin banks where they might be anonymous and located in third-party foreign countries. Mm-hmm. But then so what you'll do is you'll deposit with them, and then maybe they'll have an app and you'll spend with their app. They'll process the transactions in a centralized manner, and then you're done. And then in the future, when you want to do more transactions, you'll just make another deposit.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, even as it stands right now, and I know a lot of people don't realize it because it's the consumer is not paying it, but it costs money to process credit card transactions. And I know, especially smaller businesses, where it's like you
often see they have a minimum.
Yeah, you go in and buy a cup of coffee for less than $1, and the fees are pretty big relative to that. So
yeah, but I mean, the market arrived at that. I mean, how do we know what the fees should be?
Right.
Maybe they're providing a valuable service. I mean, the credit card transactions also, it's not this greedy Amex or ripping off the poor merchant for money. They're providing guarantee. They have to provide certain guarantees to the customer. If your credit card is stolen, they reimburse you. I've had American Express call me before when my credit card number was stolen, and then they mail me a new one free of charge. It's a wonderful service.
Yep.
There's nothing wrong with these things, but of course they have drawbacks. We don't get our privacy with them because they can be subpoenaed by government. We have to pay. Obviously, the merchant pays a price which they pass on to the customer. There's different trade-offs in life, and you have to make these trade-offs, and Bitcoin's one of them. And I think eventually those systems will move over to Bitcoin, and we'll have more anonymous versions of Visa.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Great.
A book that I'm reading right now, which is pretty fascinating, it's called The Sovereign Individual. A lot of Bitcoiners recommended it, like this guy Balaji Srinivasan, who you may have heard of. Have you?
Not familiar.
Okay.
Not familiar.
I think I would remember that name.
So he's a CEO of a Bitcoin company called 21, which I'll admit it's not looking so good for that company. So I'm going to not going to talk about them. But he has a speech on YouTube, which when we hang up, you guys have to go watch this. It's just like 20 minutes. But it's called Voice versus Exit. And it basically explains how we're just going to arrive at a libertarian future. We're going to have more quote unquote digital exits from government. Right. So your money is stored through systems like Bitcoin. Your transportation is arranged by Uber. Your home may be someday just like an Airbnb. Mm-hmm. Things become more mobile. Your work becomes more mobile. Become more location dependent. You can engage in jurisdictional arbitrage by moving from one place to another, and that's why I'm a big fan of open borders, you guys. Right. Being able to engage in jurisdictional arbitrage, and so governments will slowly lose their power. They may they're going to grow smaller over time. The United States may break up into 50 small countries. Each state becomes a country, and then each county within the state becomes a country, and power will become more devolved, and will become more like Hong Kongs and Singapores instead of big U.S., China, Russia type governments. And so he recommends a book called The Sovereign Individual, which basically lays a lot of this vision out. I'm in the middle of reading it right now. It's pretty good so far.
Nice.
I'll have to put that on the list.
Yeah. But definitely watch Balaji. I just started this, and the book's been recommended to, and I've been heard so much about it for 2 years now, and I'm only now picking it up. But Balaji's 20-minute speech, you can just watch it. Voice versus Exit.
Voice versus Exit.
Yeah, it kind of goes in this whole. I think Bitcoin is better off the more we sort of stick to the cypherpunk ideals of it, and the less we look at it as like a payment mechanism.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And if you think about it, the path that Bitcoin takes, it's determined by the hodlers. That's one reason why I'm very optimistic that like efforts to raise the block size without consensus will always fail, because what they're doing is they're prioritizing people who transact on Bitcoin. But the people who determine the future of Bitcoin are the ones who are willing to hold it, because they're the ones that they're the ones that give value to Bitcoin. And the value of Bitcoin is what makes it worthwhile to mine for, because of the block reward. Mm-hmm. So miners will always choose the chain that has value on it. So hodlers are the most important people in Bitcoin. So ultimately, by selling, if there's a fork that has a bad option, then selling those coins or buying more of yours is the way to go. But you just gotta make sure that you don't. With this case, with the replay protection, you don't. That's one reason why you don't want to sell this Segwit 2X just yet.
Okay.
Yeah, you can figure that thing out. Yeah, but I mean, the hodlers I sold my Bitcoin Cash and I bought more Bitcoin with that, and I contributed to the dominance of Bitcoin over Bitcoin Cash because of my decisions, along with millions of others.
Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So,
go ahead.
No, I was going to change subjects. So if you have something to say, get it out.
No, just that I decided to start working on a project too to start trying to fix this problem with developing a coin that really is the workhorse and does a lot of work for things. And something that everyone should have. And I'm going to call it Tractor Coin.
Oh, you got it in. So. You got it in. That was weak.
Oh, come on.
I didn't see that one coming. I didn't see it coming.
That was better than last week, the Halloween.
Well, I was going to ask, wow, when did you start this project? Because I haven't heard.
I finally got a good one in.
Oh, man.
Yeah, I'll give it to you.
Oh, man. Either we have the coin required to buy John Deere's or something.
Yeah. Not John. Come on.
So,
not John Deere's. International Harvester.
Yeah.
Oh, is that a better brand?
It's one of those things where you say tractor, you mention a tractor, John Deere, as if that's the only tractor out there. But they're very good tractors.
Yeah.
But I was going to say no one buys them.
They're very expensive, and you don't necessarily need all of that tractor for what most people are going to do.
Is John Deere the Harley Davidson of tractors?
Probably.
Yeah. Okay. That's what it sounds like.
All right. So that's actually a good segue, because I was going to ask about altcoins.
Yeah.
I thought
last time you were on. Yeah. Well, no. But last time you were on, you talked about Ethereum a little bit, and you were not a big fan, and not a big fan of altcoins in general. But I had a question, because back a couple years ago, it was probably 2014 or so, I was messing around and I bought a whole bunch of different altcoins, and one of them was Vertcoin. Mm-hmm. And Vertcoin was basically valueless forever for the last 3 years. And then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, it jumped up to about $5.60. And I think it's starting to come down again. But how does that happen? What is that about? Because I wasn't following Vertcoin. I just happened to check it and see the price was rising. So I sold some and converted it.
Your guess is as good as mine. I don't know who can even peer in the mind of people who are buying and selling these things. I don't know. There's sometimes there's pump and dumps. One thing I could estimate, one thing I could guess is that there's a lot of Bitcoin chat groups on the app Telegram. Telegram is like a competitor of WhatsApp, and there's like large chat groups, and a lot of them are coordinated towards pumping certain coins for like a short period and then dumping them. Like they'll get a bunch of people.
Right, so I guess if you're on,
so like at 6 p.m. on November 3rd, 2017, we're going to buy this coin. This garbage coin. We're going to put all our money into it. It's going to pump. People are going to look at that. They're going to see if they can try to ride the wave.
See the price rising,
and then we're going to dump on them.
And then give the time to start selling.
Yeah,
that makes sense, and that could be what's happening.
Yeah, it could be. I looked into Vertcoin itself. I guess their objective was to was to solve mining centralization by having a coin that's resistant to ASIC mining. ASICs, ASIC are the computers that the professional miners use to mine Bitcoin. But people like you and I are not going to own them, so it's kind of a little bit of a barrier to entry. I'm skeptical that's possible. B, even if it was possible, you'd have to audit their code. You have the capability of auditing their code and making sure that that their code actually does that. C, even if it's possible to reduce mining centralization and have a coin where people still mine on their laptop instead of it being done in a mining farm in China, that may not be a good thing, because then you could have like zombie type viruses that infect people's computers and that runs programs in the background. They never even know it. Mm-hmm. That's what would eventually happen, is you'd see those kinds of viruses running around. It would install programs on your computers in the background and be mining in the background. It would cost you in the form of extra energy, because your computer would be persistently running this program and consuming a lot of energy. It'd probably burn out your computer earlier. So it might be good to some extent to have mining professionalized, but I don't want it, so centralized that we have just
only a couple of them doing it.
Yeah, because then pressure could be put on them. So there's a give and take there. It's just, I don't know. There's also network effects to all this. Largest coin is gonna have the largest network, and that's going to be the one that people in the future are going to want to join if they want to transact with people. As Bitcoin has the most eyes on its software. So there's a team of over 100 developers working on Bitcoin, and they're honestly the best at it. And I highly recommend. I encourage people to get as technical as you possibly can. Don't be afraid to learn about things like public-private key encryption and proof of work and things like that, because the more you know, the more you have the ability to separate the scammers from the people who are legit. So don't just take my word for it. The more you learn about it, the more you can realize maybe I said something wrong that was wrong on a technical level here. And I have no computer science background. You guys know I work in a completely separate field. So it's stuff you're capable of learning. And so in Bitcoin, there's so many eyes on the software, the actual Bitcoin Core software itself, all of the wallets like Trezors, probably hundreds of thousands of people own Trezors. So there's more eyes on the source code, the open source code of Trezor, because they release it to the world. There's less likely to be more shenanigans. Whereas if you start delving into altcoins and you keep, say you keep your private key for XYZ coin in your XYZ coin wallet on your phone or your computer, somebody could have slipped a bug in there that you deposit enough money and then it drains the wallet after a while. Right. This has been known to happen. So sticking to the most populous ecosystem brings security benefits. You don't have to dupe. That's why I'm against forks also, is because the work of merchants and exchanges and wallet providers like Trezor, like Red Wallet, like blockchain.info, they have to perform so much more security work for what benefit? I mean, I guess the benefit is if there's a fundamental disagreement in the community, like there was between big blockers and small blockers that are in favor of segregated witness like myself, then at a certain point you have to have a divorce and let each party go its way. And maybe that's why Bitcoin that's really the price started really doing well once August 1st came by and we got SegWit on Bitcoin and Bitcoin crashed, Cash was created, and they went their own way. Because now we finally had a separation of the visions and we could test them against each other. And that's a good thing. That's a very good thing. In fact, there's one Bitcoin commentator. Did I ever mention to you guys the Satoshi Nakamoto Institute?
Sounds familiar.
I was going to say that sounds familiar. Yeah.
There's a website called the Satoshi Nakamoto Institute, and they have, if you go there, it started by 3 guys who were undergrads. They had an Austrian economics study group at the University of Texas, and they basically started this website where they posted essays about Bitcoin. And so if you go to the Satoshi Nakamoto Institute website, and you click mempool, which they have a lot of old literature from the old cypherpunk days. That's great stuff to read. Essays from Nick Szabo, all of Satoshi's writings, Wei Dai, who made a predecessor to Bitcoin. They have a lot of good resources on their website. But they also have it on a separate tab that says mempool. They have essays that they wrote. I would highly recommend reading all those essays. Those essays taught me so much about Bitcoin that it clarified my thinking about it. And so the guy, So the three guys, their names are Michael Goldstein, Pierre Rochard, and Daniel Kraywitz. And Daniel Kraywitz is a very prominent. I don't actually necessarily agree. I'm pretty much fully overlap with Michael Goldstein and Pierre Rochard. Daniel Kraywitz is a little different from the other two. He is actually a big blocker, but I still respect the hell out of him because he actually makes good arguments in favor of it. And his argument is that it's actually not so much a big block argument, it's a pro-hard fork argument. He is in favor of Bitcoin forking more. I'm against it, as I've just explained. But he is in favor of Bitcoin forking more because what it does is it gives investors the option to choose between different chains. So people can actually, the market is now testing the Bitcoin SegWit.
What works, right?
Yeah, versus the Bitcoin Cash 2 megabyte no SegWit chain. So I respect that opinion, but I would highly recommend going to their website and reading those essays.
I'm on there now. It looks like the complete Satoshi literature, some research, and their mempool.
Yeah. I've been, for the listeners and for myself, I've been taking notes of everything you've recommended so far, and everything will be on the show notes page, which will be mcflugel.com/64. Yeah.
That website I like a lot. I mean, if you guys want some recommendations, it's a really good resources. There's a website called truthcoin.info, which has some essays by a guy named Paul SZTORC Storks. We call him Sports for fun. Paul Sports. His essays are excellent. He talks a lot about something called drive chain a lot, which is like this concept of side chains. So you can go to his website. But even his essays about Bitcoin in general are very on point. These people also, they're not wishy-washy. They don't, you guys know who Andreas Antonopoulos is?
Yep.
So Andreas Antonopoulos, I think, is great. He's a great representative. If I want somebody from Bitcoin representing Bitcoin on a major mainstream talk show or something, I want Andreas Antonopoulos. He's been on Joe Rogan's podcast, a very popular podcast, like 3 or 4 times now. Yep. So he's great. But he is a little more – he doesn't take sides in things. These guys –
kind of plays the middle line, right?
He's very middle of the road. So he's like pro Ethereum, and I'm a skeptic of that. But I think he does a good job representing the community as a whole, and I appreciate his efforts. These guys, so Paul Sports as well as the guys at the Social Nakamoto Institute, they take sides in debates, and so I like that because they're willing to, that there's reputational risk there. I think that's a good thing. And they also provide really good insights. And so does Andreas Antonopoulos. So you have to just read widely and just kind of come to your own conclusions. I mean, there's very little in Bitcoin I've thought of that was genuinely original. I think there's a couple things, original thoughts I've had. But most of mine is coming from reading lots of different people and then sort of kind of triangulating what makes sense amongst most of them. Oh, I like this thing from that guy. Oh, that guy had a really good point over there. And you come to your own understanding of what the system is, what Bitcoin is, how it truly works, who controls it, what the potential attack vectors are, what it will be like in 5-10 years. You just have to read widely. So the Satoshi Nakamoto Institute's a great resource. Paul Sports' website, truthcoin.info is a good resource. There's some good podcasts, like Bitcoin Uncensored I like a lot. I just listened to a good 3-part episode of a podcast called Tales from the Crypt, kind of that old spooky horror show. And they interviewed Pierre Rochard. They just had a 3-part interview. I like that a lot. There's just, you got to read widely. Read Reddit sometimes. Yeah. I mean, Reddit and Twitter aren't they're kind of more like cheerleading and stuff, but follow the devs like Adam Back, Greg Maxwell. Go on YouTube and watch their lectures. There's a couple conferences, Breaking Bitcoin and Scaling Bitcoin, and you can go to their websites and watch their lectures. So those are kind of on the technical side of things, but it's good to know the technical side of things because they inform your perception of the economics of the system. And I mean, you guys understand economics better than most people out there. Being a libertarian gave me a leg up in this stuff because it's why I instinctively understood Bitcoin, why we need it. Yeah.
Yep.
That's why we're attracted to it. So yeah.
And like you're saying, you read and listen and study from a bunch of different people and then triangulate. And it's the same thing with economics. Mm-hmm. I don't know that one person who understands economics just only read one person, only studied from one person. I mean, it's almost impossible just to do that because you're just going to, how you absorb things. People are sending you stuff, you stumble on things and you're just reading all sorts of different.
Wait, are you saying people should go to other websites than McFogel?
Oh, no, that's different. That's different, except for us. Well, no, that's what I'm saying, because we did all that for you, so you only need to come to us.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Well, you guys do a pretty good job.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah, I mean, definitely. I mean, even on the immigration debate where we see eye to eye, you guys definitely had like a very clear way of dissecting that issue. Actually, pretty much every time, you guys are able to dissect things and examine the logical fallacies better than most people out there. And if you're able to do that, you can understand Bitcoin better. You can kind of see how the system would respond to different challenges.
Right.
And over time, the more Bitcoin's attacked, the more resilient it becomes. So, that's kind of, it's sort of, I don't know, it's the conclusion I've come to. I don't think it can be really stopped by now. We're at that podcast I just mentioned with Pierre Rochard, Tales from the Crypt. He said something really interesting, which I'll echo, is that we're kind of reaching the end of the beginning of Bitcoin. It's
moving into the next phase.
Yeah, we're going mainstream, really. People, I'm meeting people now I rarely hear from somebody who hasn't even heard of it. And people I didn't know were into Bitcoin, I now find out are into Bitcoin all of a sudden. Oh, yeah. That's like something I never would have heard.
It's funny because me and Rallo were talking about this, but we've been talking about Bitcoin for a couple of years, just being in the libertarian community. Mm-hmm. So you know about it. We bought some, and no one really wanted to listen. Excuse me. But now, it's in the news all the time, and you see Goldman Sachs is going to buy some, and it really is in the news every day. Now people are coming back and asking, how do I get some of that? So
they literally talk about it on CNBC. They literally talk about it on, I think, the 5 o'clock show. I think it's called Street Fast Squawk Box on CNBC. Okay. They literally talk about every day on Squawk Box now. Right. There's a Bitcoin update every day.
Yeah, so now, I don't run into too many people who own it, but everybody knows about it, and it seems like everybody wants it.
They're coming. Right. They're coming.
Yeah.
And once people start figuring out a little bit better, because I've talked to people where they said, I'd love to get involved in Bitcoin, but it's kind of too late. And I said, no, it's not too late. I mean, it's going to keep going up, I think. And he goes, well, no, but I'm not going to spend $6,000 on a Bitcoin. And I'm like, it doesn't work that way. You can split it up into
I told somebody that. He's like, he was afraid to buy Bitcoin, but he wanted a whole Bitcoin. I'm like, you don't need a whole Bitcoin. You can get a fraction of it. He's like, no, but I want a whole one. I want nothing, or I want one. It's like
all or nothing.
Well, okay.
Like maybe what will happen is that we'll start using milli Bitcoin as a unit, and eventually Satoshi, which is 1/10 of Bitcoin.
Right.
Yeah, let's say a Satoshi's worth $1 someday.
Oh, that would mean Bitcoin's $10 million.
Yeah, I'd be okay with that price.
Yeah.
I don't know that's possible.
I could live with that. I mean, who knows? I don't want to make predictions, but I mean, the problem is the people who think it's too late now. They said it was probably too late when it went from 15 to 200, and then they said it was. I mean, you have to just look at it yourself and come to what is the value of this network. Well, is it going to usurp gold? Is it going to usurp the dollar? Is it going to usurp? I mean, you can make some outlandish predictions out there that would make it $1 million, $5 million, $10 million. Some people think it'll just absorb everything. Everything will be priced in Bitcoin, which means the entire world GDP will be in Bitcoin, which means every Bitcoin will be worth millions. And then I mean, is it too late now to buy if that's your projection?
If that's the case, yeah.
Like, well, what kept my head straight on about it, and I think because I know Slappy and I have talked about it, so I think it's the same way for him. I mean, I just saw it as having long-term value one way or the other. So, when I bought in, it had a bunch of price fluctuations, and I was, quote unquote, lost some money for a while. I was like, well, I don't think Bitcoin's ever going away, so I'm just going to sit there and not worry about the price.
Yeah, the people who made the money in Bitcoin are not just the ones who bought early, the people who never sold it. They didn't buy the Bitcoin pizza for 10,000 Bitcoins in 2010. They didn't panic in that year and a half where it went from about 1,200 down to 200.
Down. Yeah,
200. That I was buying through that slump.
Yeah, so was I. I was afraid. There was a part of me thinking it's just going to keep going down. This is the end, but I'm buying anyway.
I paid close attention to the debates then. I was really doing all my research, and at no point did I ever lose confidence in the technical community.
Right.
Like I never, or the actual software itself, or the premise or the concept. I mean, I just knew that eventually it would have to turn around at some point, and it was.
I liked
long,
the
it was
concept,
a year and a half.
and that's why. Yeah, and I believed in the concept, which is why I bought some. But
yeah, that was a long stretch
out,
there.
I guess.
But a lot of people sold out in that period, and they're kind of regretting it. I mean, remember January 2016 was when Mike Hearn, the developer behind Bitcoin XT, quit. He wrote an expose in the New York Times saying Bitcoin is dead, and at the time the price was like $400.
Nice.
So yeah, he basically just lost out. He sold all his Bitcoin at that time, and he doesn't have anything now.
Well, anyone who makes any predictions for any of this kind of stuff where you can make money, and they say, oh, it's definitely going to happen. It's like, oh, why aren't you a trillionaire right now then? Because there's no way to predict any of this stuff.
There's, of course, I mean, and you're talking to a Bitcoin bull here. But what I will say is that the larger Bitcoin grows, the more there's something called the Lindy effect. I don't know who coined it, but it's like the longer something has existed, the more likely it is to exist in the future. So sure. Bitcoin's made it 8.5 years now, a little more than that. And so its projected life now grows as it survived against all these attacks.
Right.
Beyond that, Bitcoin also it's a network, and the more people that own and hold Bitcoin, the more likely the more businesses that will be built on top of it, the more mining power, the more name recognition, the more trust, just everything gets more. And so it benefits from that. And the more likely the prices to go up in the future because it's a stronger network. Mm-hmm. It's kind of like Facebook. The reason why Facebook is so strong is because everybody's on Facebook. So in the future, everybody looks, if you want to connect to your friends, they're on Facebook. They're not necessarily on my startup social network. You have to get a network going with all the connections between people. And so Bitcoin's a larger network than every altcoin. I mean, I'm now looking, over the summer, people were thinking there was going to be this thing called the flippening. Did you hear about that?
No, I didn't.
They thought Ethereum was going to surpass Bitcoin. Ethereum basically came to this past summer, it came to maybe 70% of Bitcoin's market cap. And then it started sliding back down. And now it's down to 1/3 of Bitcoin's market cap because Bitcoin's surging and the altcoins are more or less staying put.
Yeah.
And the reality is that, they said Ethereum hasn't really lived up to its promise of toppling Bitcoin. And the more important thing about Ethereum that I'm a skeptic about is I don't think any of these ICOs or businesses built on top of it are going to pan out.
Right.
Bitcoin's found its product market fit, which is a secure store of value. Whereas
right.
Ethereum is being pitched as this world computer, Internet 3.0, and we have yet to see if that's going to pan out. Mm-hmm. There's no working applications on Ethereum right now with any substantive user base.
Yeah, it's all good stuff. I love it.
Yeah, it's primarily ICOs now.
Yeah.
So do you guys have any other further questions or topics you wanted to go into? we kind of covered a lot of we covered the forks. We know what to do. Right now I'd say just sit tight with the Segway 2X. I think we talked a lot about the economics of the system.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we're almost an hour and a half.
Yeah, okay.
Again, just like last time. So
good, we break it up into two again. That's fine.
Yeah, we definitely can. I think if we find a good good
fascinating stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like we could just keep going on and on and on, which is good because that means we have to have you on again soon.
Yep. Yeah, I know. Well, we should maybe just once every few months just to reassess what the current
see what's going on.
The current drama, the current technical debate. There's a lot of topics we have yet to cover. I mean, if we want to go to the technical stuff, I'm not obviously the super technical person, but if you want to have somebody else I can recommend that's very technical, I could find somebody or drop you a name. Sure. I could talk just briefly what I understand about some of these other things that are coming up, like Schnorr signatures, confidential transactions. There's a lot of good technical stuff on the horizon. Lightning Network, of course, is very exciting. So that we'll save that for the future.
Sounds good.
Yeah, definitely. And I'm gonna read up on some of this stuff.
Yeah. Go to those websites that I mentioned, like Paul Sports' site.
Yeah. I'll be able to disagree with you.
Yeah.
We could have a little debate.
Well, I mean, this is economics, and it's all about your interpretation. I mean, I made my interpretation about their node costs versus mining centralization and all of the various incentives based on what the block size is and how it changes. So people can come to a different the big blockers, their argument is that if we raise the block size, transactions are cheaper, more people will use Bitcoin, and then it'll become more popular, and then more people will run nodes, and then it's a bigger network. And I disagree with that, but it's an argument, and it's based on some semblance of economic thinking. I think it's bad economic thinking, but it's an argument, and people come to their own conclusion, and you can choose your path that you like by running a node of the software that you like. That's how you determine what Bitcoin or what altcoin you like. And hodling it also. Hodling it and running a node. Those are the two ways. Yeah. All right, guys. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Vivek Raj.
Yeah, thanks for joining us.
Appreciate it.
Yep. All right, see you next time.
So there you have it. Our episode with Vivek Raj on Bitcoin and the forks and the other news going on. A little bit of a longer episode, but I think it was well worth your time if you stuck through. So to just do a quick free market success story like we usually do, I'm just going to go back to the beginning of the episode and reference the Trezor wallet. Not only do they offer a great product in their hardware wallet, but they also act as kind of a watchdog for Bitcoin and everything else. And that information that they give out is available to everyone on their blog and their website. So they offer that service for free. So I hope you enjoyed the episode. Again, the show notes page is mcflugel.com/64. We'll have links to previous episodes with Vivek, as well as some links to the things we talked about in the episode, as well as all the normal things like following us on Twitter, liking us on Facebook, and keeping up on the other social media outlets, as well as subscribing to this podcast on both iTunes and Stitcher. And, sign up to our newsletter. So with that, please send this out to your friends. We love that when people, let other people know about what we're doing. So thanks for listening. We'll catch you next week.